Klamath Falls, Sherwood, welcome everyone. Hello again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this virtual farm field trip. We are live today in Cheshire, Oregon at Stroda Brothers Christmas Tree Farm. My name is Mariana and I'll be the moderator today. Before we start our tour today, I wanted to go over a few logistics to make sure we have a great experience. We've muted everyone and everyone will remain muted throughout the tour just so everyone can hear our tour guide clearly. If you have any questions, you can send them to us using the chat feature. Please only type questions to us in the chat. This will help us see questions and ask as many as possible. It is now my pleasure to introduce our host and tour guide for today's virtual field trip, Kirk Stroda. Take it away, Kirk.
Good morning, everyone. We're out here in Cheshire, Oregon at our Christmas tree farm. We're going to kind of give you a little bit of history of what we are here and what we do and how we produce a Christmas tree from newly planted seedlings this spring up until they get to be 8-foot, 10-foot trees cut and delivered to your home. We're Stroda Brothers Farm. We've been in Christmas tree business for getting close to 40 years. We plant about 20,000 seedlings a year, and we harvest right at the 20,000 seedlings a year also. We grow all kinds of different varieties: Noble fir, Nordmann fir, Douglas fir, and Grand fir, and Fraser fir. What we're looking at here is a field that we planted this spring. These are Nordmann fir seedlings, 1 year old. You can kind of see, it's maybe hard to see, but we've got sawdust on around each one of our seedlings. We ended up doing that to be able to hold the moisture in. We've been having some hot, dry springs and summers, and we've been having a lot of mortality. So we've put the sawdust on there. What that does is it holds the moisture in on the tree, so it's got, hopefully it'll make it through the summer and into the rainy season. And once it gets 1 year underneath of it, these trees will grow and they won't have any more problems with that. Back up a little bit of history about Christmas trees. The nation, United States, produces and sells roughly 50 million seedling or Christmas trees a year. Oregon produces 4.7 million Christmas trees a year. That's quite a few trees that we produce and that we send out in trucks going to the farthest we send our trucks to is Texas. Mainly it goes to California market, and we do some local markets in here at Eugene. And also we do U-cuts on weekend where people can come up and pick their own tree and cut it, and so you get to pick your own live tree. The different varieties of seedlings that we plant are kind of what we're estimating what our sales will be in 8 years. That's the hard part of this, is trying to guess what variety is going to be needed and numbers of stuff is going to be needed. So that's why we kind of plant a little bit of everything. You can see off over in the other side, that is a field of Noble fir, and those trees there are 7 years old. So it goes from the small ones that you just seen to the big ones. That's 7 years. That's what we have to plan on getting a tree up into market. You can see here behind us is a pile of trees that have already been baled up. What we do, you can see the paint on the ends of the butts, and that is color coordination. So what we do when we end up baling the tree, you'll see here in a minute watching a baler work, we size everything. So this tree here with the green bud on it is a 7 to 8 foot Noble fir. And the ones with yellow on it, you can see in the background, that's a 6 to 7. So we know after we get done cutting and baling and prepping these trees, we know exactly what the sizes are to be able to go out to our customers. How we end up doing that, when we sell a freight truck load to somebody, they place their order, get them in usually around September, and they'll say how many small trees, how many noble fir, how many Nordman fir, and how many Douglas fir. So when a freight truck comes in, what we will end up doing is having that order, and we put that many trees, maybe say he wants 100 green noble fir, he wants 100 yellow noble fir, and then Doug fir, and all the way through till we get the truck loaded up, and then we shut the door and send it down the road. I don't know if we want to walk over.
A quick question from Mrs. P's third grade class. They want to know what your favorite kind of tree to grow is.
There's a it's not a new variety, it's been out, but most people don't know what it is. And it's called a Nordman fir. It's a lot hardier. There's no bugs that bother it. It is heat and stress resistant, not totally resistant, but it doesn't stress out like a noble fir does. And it's a really pretty, the color's really super dark green. We'll show you some small ones here in a second. What we're walking up to here is we call it a baler. And I know a lot of kids probably know like a hay baler. This is kind of the same thing. We put a tree in the back of it, and it goes through the cone, and it shrinks the tree down and puts wraps string around it. So we'll be able to put these trees on a freight truck. If we put them on without them being baled up, they won't all fit in a truck. So we shrink them down. You can watch how quick that is. And what we do in here on the back end, we have a shaker. And we don't get all the needles out of it, but we get a majority of the needles out of the tree. Just to keep the house is cleaner. When you bring a tree in, you've got dead needles on the inside. And this will try to get most of them out and makes it so a cleaner house. But as you can see, as the tree is coming out of the baler, they'll cut it and they'll slide it down and they'll slide it up to the headboard, and they measure what the size of that is. And that's where that tree there, it was a yellow one, so they put it in the 6 to 7 pile.
We do have a question. Mrs. Kaiser's class wants to know why trees cost a lot.
I'm gonna have to walk. I didn't get to hear you. The baler was too noisy. What were you saying?
Mrs. Kaiser's class would like to know why trees cost a lot of money.
Well, it costs a lot of money because we're looking at these trees here are Douglas fir, and that is a 7-year-old tree. The noble fir are 7 or 8 to 9 years old. So we've got 9 years invested in these trees, and there's a lot of labor, hand labor that goes with that. Here in a little bit, you'll get to see us shearing a Douglas fir, and every year we have to do that. On the noble fir and the Nordman fir, we have to work the tops. There's just a lot of work that needs to be done to these trees every year. Another question?
We do have another one. Mrs. Ochoa's first grade class is interested in knowing, do any animals try to eat the trees?
Yes. Rabbits absolutely love to eat little seedlings. Once the trees get bigger, they don't bother them. But the rabbits, the first year or two that they're old, they'll come and chew the tops off of them. Elk and deer also eat them. We don't have a real problem with deer or elk here, but I know there's other Christmas tree farmers that are up in the mountains, and the elk just come in and devastate them, eat all the side branches. And also they come, and the bucks and the bulls will rub their horns and totally tear a tree up also. We can walk over here and I'll show you. It's a small field of the Nordman fir that we're growing. You'll see the difference in the color.
While you're walking that way, I do have another question. Ms. Turman's class would like to know, how tall is your tallest tree?
The tallest tree that we sent out this year was 21 feet tall. And we sold that tree to a customer down in, actually it went to Hollywood, and it was going into, I don't know exactly, it was one of the movie stars' houses, and he got a lot of money for that tree. You can see here, this is what a Nordmann fir is. Look at the color, the branching, the needles and stuff on it. It's just a, it's just a really, really nice looking tree. We'll come back in and cut these tops back and make this tree. This is the height that we've got to start shortening the tops, because if we don't, it'll just keep being, I call this leggy and sparse in here. But once we cut this, it'll start filling up on the inside of the tree, and then that's when we get that perfect tree. Another question?
Yes, Madeline wants to know what made you decide to start a Christmas tree farm?
Way back when we first started this, I was only 23 years old or so. There's three brothers, and my mother and father owned the farm at the time, and we were needing to be more diversified and have something else to be able to have some income coming in. And so we end up buying the property that we have here, and we started planting Christmas trees. And my part of the farm is growing and taking care of the Christmas trees. Another question?
Yes, we have another one. Miss Mertz's class would like to know how many trees can fit in one truckload.
It depends on the sizes of the trees, but an average load is about 800 trees is what we put on a freight truck. We did load one the other day, and we only got well, not even that, 400 and some trees, but there was a lot of 8 and 10 foot trees that went on it, and they just take up a lot more room than a smaller tree.
Miss Brown's class is curious, where do you get the seeds from to start the trees?
The seed comes from actually the big trees, the timber trees out in the forest. The noble fir seed comes from out of Mary's Peak. It would be west of Corvallis, up on top of Mary's Peak. There's a region that noble fir grow wild. They go up there, and if you see a cone, I didn't think about that. If you see a cone that's on a Douglas fir or any kind of a tree, if you break that open, there is seed inside of that, and that's where you get the seed from. Douglas fir, it's the same. They go up and pick the cones off of big timber trees, and this Turkish fir or Nordmann fir, this seed comes from the country of Georgia, next door to Turkey. That is the region. This is not seed, does not produced in the United States. This seed is produced over in the state of Georgia. So they go up into the mountains of Georgia and do the same thing. They pick the cones off of the trees, and they'll get that seed, and they'll process it, they'll dry it, they'll clean it, and then they'll send that seed over to us here in the United States, and then the nursery plants that, and then 2 years later, after the nursery's had it, we get it and plant it out into our fields then. Next question.
Can we take a look at the shearing, please?
Okay, if you want to go ahead and do the shearing, let's do it.
While you walk that way, we do have a video here, and Kirk is going to explain what is going on.
Well, what we're looking at here is a Douglas fir that has not been sheared yet. That's what that tree looks like after the spring that has grown. You can kind of see branches going everywhere in a wildish looking tree. What we do, we have a crew that comes through, and they have got a machete, and they'll take that machete and then they'll shear off the branches, and they'll make it into, they try to make it into a kind of a cone type looking tree. And you have to look for the one of the kind of the perfect top on it. And you can watch us here and see how it's done. One person, he can shear about 600 trees a day doing it this. They've been doing it for years and they're very accomplished. I'm not very good at it, but our crew is, they're pretty professional at what they do. You can see you cut off the side branches, and as you work around the tree, you just keep cutting off the new growth. And then you go up and you're kind of looking for the one at the top that's the straightest, and you end up cutting off the other ones, and you pick it and you cut it off, and you've got your tree sheared. Any other question?
How do you cut them down, and do you harvest them by helicopter?
Yes, we do. We cut them down. We have a gentleman that works for us, and he uses a chainsaw and he cuts the trees down. We have each tree is tagged ahead of time. So when he goes through the field, he knows exactly what there'll be a white clip on the tree that it shows that tree is to be picked for being cut. And it's just a regular chainsaw that we end up using to cut the trees down. And then what we do then, we use ropes, and when we use the helicopter, we call it building a bundle. We make a pile of trees with the ropes, and we put it depends on the size of the tree. Bigger trees we just fly 6 or 7 in them. But if we got a normal pile, we go about 10, 12, 13 trees per bundle. We want to start seeing the helicopter now.
Perfect.
We've already got the bundles made up out in the field. The helicopter flies in, and there's a person that's standing there that hooks up the ropes to the hook underneath the helicopter, and he'll pick that bundle up and he'll take it back to our main yard. And that's what earlier you seen the pile of trees behind the baler. That's what we end up flying him into that. That distance there, we try to keep the helicopter around 30 to 40 seconds between, like when he drops the bundle there and he goes back and picks up another bundle and comes back, because it gets very expensive. The helicopter is very expensive to use, but where we're at here, we're up on a hillside, so everything gets really muddy. So we try to use the helicopter as much as we possibly do. You can see we've already made all the bundles before the helicopter ever gets there. When we get a field bundled up and ready to go, we call the helicopter, and usually within a couple hours he can come and fly the trees out. And we also able to keep the trees a lot fresher that way, where we can get the trees out of the field in just a matter of minutes. And then when they hit the ground, there you can see guys that are jumping on the pile. They end up coming in and pulling the ropes out, and then we have a four-wheeler that pulls the ropes out of the pile, so we don't have ropes all tangled up in the piles while we're baling them.
We have a question. How many trees are per bundle usually?
It just depends on the size. It's around an average of around 10 trees per bundle. We have got some big noble fir that we fly in, and we fly 2 trees at a time. The helicopter only likes to lift about 800 pounds per lift. So when we got those bigger trees, we only, like I said, we only do 2 trees at a time because they weigh that much.
Do trees ever fall off the helicopter?
They don't ever, well, yes and no. They don't really ever fall out of the bundle, but every now and then, if we get a bundle that's too heavy, it'll break a rope. And when one of the ropes, we have 2 ropes hooked up, but if it breaks one of the ropes, the bundle will fall apart. And that's why the helicopter, he doesn't want to fly over houses or people or vehicles or anything. He wants to, he doesn't want to, so if something does happen, you won't end up injuring anybody.
Mrs. Golden's class is wanting to know how many trees can the helicopter carry per day?
If they're doing, okay, this is your math question for the day. If he flying 6 hours and if he can take 10 trees per bundle and he's doing a turn that's from here to back in 45 seconds, teachers, write that down. And you can end up penciling that out and finding how many trees a helicopter could move in a day. So 6 hours, and he is lifting 10 trees per bundle, and he's doing, we call it a turn. That's from to the field, in here, and back out there in 40 seconds. That's your math question for the day.
Hey Rock School is curious, what tree do you put in your house for Christmas?
This year I picked out a noble fir. Last year we had a Nordmann fir, but this year there was a noble fir that was right close to the road and it was perfect. So I cut it down and took it home.
We've got a lot of questions about how big your farm is and how many trees do you have growing?
Our farm here at our Cheshire yard, we have 160 acres. There's the other math question for you. We don't have everything in the ground, but say we have 95 acres of trees in the ground and we plant 1,500 trees per acre. There's another math question. And you can see, and the next question I'm sure would probably be, why don't we have all of our ground planted? As you can see up off on the hill where that green is, we planted that to oats. And what we're doing is, that was Christmas trees a year ago. When we get done harvesting, we go out and we pull all the old stumps and then we work the ground. We take soil samples and find out what the ground is needing. If we're needing any fertilizers, we put fertilizer in the ground, and we also lime the ground to make it sweet. And then we put at least 1 year, if not 2 years, of cover crop on that, what we're doing. And then we'll take that oat straw and we'll work it back into the ground and build our soils back up. 2 different things. It puts organic matter back into the ground, and also it stops erosion. It's soil health. It just, if you keep mining everything out in a 9-year rotation off of a tree, it's mining nutrients out of the soil for 9 years. And if you wouldn't put anything back in it, sooner or later there'll be nothing left in the soil for that tree to grow. So that's why we do the cover crop and try to be good to the soil.
Miss Roenberg's class would like to know, do you guys always work or do you get sleep?
Pardon, what was that?
Do you guys always work or do you get some sleep?
You get a little sleep because this time of the year it gets dark at 5 o'clock. So we quit work every night at 4:30, and it's just starting to get dark, and we start at daylight in the mornings. We work 7 days a week. Virtually all of Christmas tree harvest, because it's such a short period of time between when we start cutting the trees and being able to get them bundled up and loaded up and down to California. So it's a short period, and it's very labor intense. We have a 20-person crew that works for us this time of the year. Our normal crew, we only have 6 people that we keep on full time, but this time of the year, we bring other workers in. The vineyards, we luck out and there's other vineyards around us and their crews aren't doing anything this time of the year. So we're able to utilize them and we put them to work for a month. And that's what it's virtually right at 1 month is what our tree harvest will end up being. Maybe a little bit over, but that's about where it's at. We'll be done shipping. I think our last load we got going out is next Thursday, and that'll be our last freight truck that we got go out. And we started 6 days, 5-6 days before Thanksgiving shipping, but we started harvesting 10 days before Thanksgiving.
Miss Sands' class is wondering, if you didn't have a helicopter, how many men would you need to carry the trees, and how would you move the trees without the helicopter?
What we would end up doing is I would imagine we'd probably have to have 30 or 40 people to do the harvest. And we would have to go out in the fields with tractors and trailers and go out into the mud and bring them in. It would be really, really labor intense, and we would track mud all over everything. And we used to do that years ago before helicopters, and we don't do that anymore. We've only been using helicopters. I know most of the students that are watching now weren't even born when they started, but we've only been using helicopters for about a little over 20 years when it really got going, people using helicopter. Another question?
The students are wondering if the helicopter is expensive to use.
Yes, it is. I have not seen the bill yet this year, but last year he charged us $1,100 an hour. So there's the other math question, is that how many when you get the first answer, how many trees you can move, and you can 1,100 times into how many trees in that 6 hours and find out what it's costing. We did some earlier. We did the math on it. It was costing us roughly around $1 a tree to fly the trees, but it would cost us a lot more of that in labor if we did not have the helicopter. So it's expensive, but it's cheaper. Question?
Do you allow U-cut trees on your farm?
Yes, we do. We have a field over here to our left. It's hard to see right now, but we have noble fir and Doug fir in that field up to 9 feet. And so people can come out. We cut the tree for them. We shake it, we bale it. All they have to do is pick the tree. But yes, we do. We U-cuts on weekends.
Miss Cox's class is wondering what the most popular tree you sell is.
Noble fir is. We sell more noble fir than we do anything. It's just it's a healthier tree. It lasts long. The needles stay on it. It stays fresh looking for if you put it in water. Don't put it over the heater vent or in the front window with the sun shining on it all the time. That tree will last up to more than a month. Staying fresh and good looking.
The students are wondering, how do you keep the tree fresh or from drying out once it has been cut?
That's why we use the helicopter. These trees that we're showing that we're baling up now, these trees, we brought these trees in yesterday. We cut them the day before. And we flew them out yesterday and we're baling them up today. So that's how fresh these trees are. We try to do that. Most everything that we do is between it being cut and being loaded on a freight truck is probably no more than 5 or 6 days.
And last question for the day. What do you enjoy most about being a Christmas tree grower?
I get that same question, I think, every year. And when I first year we did this, and it kind of caught me off guard. But what I like about it, the trees don't talk back. The trees are here every day. The tree's got a smile on its face. It's just enjoyable. You're out here in the sunshine, in the cold, the rain, the snow, or whatever, working, but it's enjoyable doing this. The trees like that. We looked at the small trees, and then we look at the trees that are bigger, that are 8 feet. It's like I've had 8 years that I've been watching that tree grow. It's enjoyable. It's a fun thing to do. I don't have to drive in traffic going to work. Anything else?
That is it for today. Thank you so much, Kirk, for taking the time to talk with students about growing trees. And thank you to all the students in classrooms for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day.